All right. Hello, Nicola.
Time, Colleen.
I am the sun is just coming up where I am, and I have no good lighting, so I apologize to our viewers. It's not the greatest lighting for me, but you look fabulous, Nicola. You're in heaven or something. I don't know.
Absolutely. As I said, when they whispered you cannot withhold the storm, Colleen, well, news, I am the storm. So we're ready to rock and roll.
I'm so thrilled, and I'm really grateful to you, Nicola, for taking the time to do this. Um, It's just a passion project of mine to explore curiosity. I've always been curious about curiosity, and so finally I thought, "Why don't I just talk to people about curiosity and pique other people's curiosity?" So that's really my goal here, and I want this to be we know each other, so we're super comfortable, casual, free flowing, no preset sort of questions or intentions except to sort of explore curiosity. So I'll say a little bit about this whole series that I'm doing. If you're tuning in for the first time, viewers, but in each episode, I'm going to sit down with people that I think are super interesting, and then we'll just explore what it's kind of like, almost not to know where this conversation is going to go. And it's super casual, not an interview, but more of a discussion. I will want to ask you, Nicola, what you think curiosity is, but I'm gonna put forth a framing that works for me because I've always been wondering what is curiosity and what is the difference between curiosity and information seeking? Because they could be different things based on our goal. And so I started looking at curiosity for me is sort of the difference between navigating and exploring. So when we're navigating, we it sort of implies that we know where we're going and we have a map. And exploring is, well, there's no necessarily no destination, but at least it's secondary to what we're discovering along the way. And so if we run into obstacles when we're exploring, we might see them as opportunities and, oh, that's okay, let's turn this way. Versus when we're navigating, it can be a little frustrating. So I don't know for you or for anybody listening or viewing this if that will land, but for me, curiosity is exploring for exploring's sake because it's interesting. So that's kind of how I see it. But let me stop there and just say for our viewers that this is what this series is about. It's I started to call it Out of Curiosity, but then Nicola, I think I'm older than you, but we're roughly the same generation. And I kept hearing Paul Simon's song Still Crazy After All These Years. Do you know that song? And so I decided I'm gonna call it Still Curious because I'm still curious after all these years. And, that's what this came from, and it's really about this what I was just saying, the experience of curiosity itself, what is it like? What happens when we embrace curiosity in our everyday lives, and what does it feel like? Because we know I'm sort of interested in this thing called interoception, which is actually feeling, and so we'll explore that a little bit. What does curiosity look like and feel like? And you can see this on, you can get to these videos on Substack or YouTube. So I just want to welcome you, Nicola, and say just a little bit about, why I wanted to invite you in as my second guest. And then I'll just turn it over to you to say a few things. But you are it's Siemens, large company, really great company, director of supply chain and management for customer service. And I'm imagining that requires a fair amount of curiosity about your customers. So we'll maybe explore that. And I met you through doing some work with Seven Futures and you, and I've just loved it. And I just really appreciate knowing you and the conversations we've had. And so that's what I would like to say up front about you. There's a lot more that I could say, but I'd like to turn it over to you.
Lovely. Well, thank you for that intro, for the scene setting there, um, Colleen. It's really interesting. It is curiosity, and one of the things is for curiosity, you have to sit and listen. So the fact that you've invited me in and there's no agenda, only this word of curiosity, the fact that I sit here, the unknown ahead, is fantastic. I love walking into things where you don't know what the answers are, because that's the delight and discovery of curiosity, as opposed to asking questions that lead to an answer that might already be prescripted. And for me, that's the difference. Who knows where curiosity may take us? It could take you one way, where you're thinking, but it may very equally take you down a very different path. So that's the excitement of curiosity for me.
Ooh, I could not have said it better. So thank you for that framing because and I can actually sense in your voice and get a feel for the excitement that you actually really truly do, and I use the term embody, but meaning that it's in your entire system. And I'm so glad that you opened up with that because that well, boy, that just leads me down to so many possible paths about I'm right now, I'm really curious about your lifelong sort of connection to curiosity because I'm guessing you were super curious as a child. And I wonder about that. I mean, do you remember as a very young child being super curious?
What I can say, what I remember, is I've always been vocal. So I class my being open and vocal as part of my curiosity. I may not have tagged it as curiosity as a child, but um, asking questions back then, because I wouldn't know that asking questions was necessarily the curiosity part, but I would always be vocal in what I thought, which doesn't come as a surprise, in what I thought or what I wanted or what I needed. These were all being vocalized at a very young age. And I would say, as that's come through, and particularly into the work life, you know, my tapestry of life was not the norm. And so me working through that and taking a very different line to many of your listeners and viewers, or maybe not quite, but it wasn't the norm. I didn't go to school, then to high school, then to what we would call higher education, and then to the degree factory. But I did all that, but in my way where my path led me to. So it was a very different area, which I think drives the curiosity. And my curiosity is driven through not accepting the norm. I'm looking for the best it can be. The intrigue that comes with that from, challenging the norm to be better. Why should we not? You know, I don't answer the philosophy of life as to what's my reason for being, although I did find out 8 years ago it was to be Nana in the world. So that's all good and proper. Now I know why I'm here. I don't have to search no more. But but this curiosity, this asking questions, this real openness, but I think it has to be tagged with authenticity and with great heart, because it's the heart that pulls it along, and that people feel that safety. And it was interesting reading, well, I can't remember the lady's name, the recent one on LinkedIn that I saw and commented on about love. And love
Yes.
for me tags to that great heart piece. You have to do it with great heart and authenticity.
Oh my gosh. Well, I will shout out the person who wrote that. And I saw that you commented on that. And that is Kelly Corbett Weinshank, who is a very dear friend of mine. I met her 30 some years ago, introduced her to her husband, now husband. They've been married for 30 some years. And she is all about that. And I hope that you'll meet her someday. You guys would love each other. So my God,
Great.
as I'm listening to you, what strikes me is this happens every single time I engage with you. I get even more excited about just life because it just bubbles out of you. This it's almost a childlike enjoyment and joy. That's what I get from you.
Yeah, you're only here once, Colleen. We've got to make the best of what we can, and the best for the people around us as well. You spend a long, long time at work, and there'll be people you like and people you don't. And I don't try and hide that. And for the people we don't like, we have to work harder at those relationships. The people we do like, they're the easy roads that we take. And so that's, bringing that together makes it some of the fun and the achieving together, and shifting that path, and bringing them on board, hopefully. You know, not 99% of the time, and numbers where you can, that there's always going to be that fraction where it falls by the wayside. And I think that's absolutely critical in part of this curiosity as well. You'll not be a winner every day. And believe me, I want to win. But I've learned to accept how to lose as well.
That again, there's so many offshoots to what you just said that I would love to explore. When you started out saying, even with people you don't like, of course, we always meet people that just for whatever reason we don't jive with them. It doesn't work. Their values might be different or their behaviors might be abhorrent to us. We just don't like how they behave. And I feel like that's when it's easiest for my own curiosity to shut down because my judgment comes in. So how do you work with that? What happens to your curiosity about the person, if anything happens? Or do you engage more with your curiosity because you realize, not really liking this person? What happens?
Absolutely. I reach out to engage more. So
Mm.
I call it, they get special Nick love, straight from the heart again, Colleen. And and not everyone will be receptive, and that's where you can only take it so far, but really try to understand from their perspective. Once we can attain their perspective, I will try and look for some low-hanging fruit, some easy wins that will take us steps forward. If we can take those steps forward, maybe they open up a little bit more, and structure their concerns and issues, the challenges. And if they can structure it in a way instead of maybe emotionally, then we can respond with a tad bit less emotion instead of doing this, and we can have a bit more of this. And that should lead to some real structured engagement and deliverables. And I think that's where it leads off to.
So I love that you just basically said something that I believe, which is there is a strong argument for high return on investment for being curious. I mean, I do believe that now, but I'm curious about maybe you don't want to say, and if you don't, just say that's off limits. But as a leader, do you find that your perspective on this is common? Or is or do you find, and it doesn't necessarily have to be people within your organization, but leaders in other fields or other organizations, do you think this is common? Have you encountered this among other leaders?
Yes. With leaders, there's great leaders. There's some that, let's just say, it was still work in progress. And there's very different styles. And I think another area that I think we touched on before is we have a set of values. My values will be very different to how I've been brought up, to how I've had my life and experienced it. And everyone's different. And humans are very complex individuals. This is not easy, simple stuff that we just wake up today and we'll be the perfect being. I'm always saying to my team, I don't have all the answers. Please help me see the light. You're in the detail. I know if I ask the right questions, you'll come back with what I need to know. So again, that curiosity factor, it's all in there. The answers are all there. They might not know it, they might know it, but by giving them the avenue to share what they know brings it back. But tying it into the leaders, I think there's some excellent leaders out there, and I would rate Sambit Banerjee as one of the absolute best, who's just retired from Siemens. Is in my long and varied career, he is an outstanding individual who I have the greatest of respects and admiration for. Hence why I've been here so long at Siemens. This will be my 10th year on the 1st of June. So fantastic. I feel privileged to have worked with Sambit. It is the view that he has been invaluable to raise Siemens to where it is. So some are excellent leaders, which I think they have curiosity, and I know if you'd met Sambit, you would used it, which is fantastic to be working with a gentleman like that. Others don't; they just want to tell you what to do. That's fine. I've worked for my fair share of those as well. But what you can do is how you interpret that message and share it with your wider team. I think again brings the inspiration and the curiosity of that team to yield the results that the business is ultimately looking for.
I love that. And yes, I did have the opportunity to do a short leadership that with Sambit, and I'm very grateful that I got to meet him because I like you were just saying, I've heard so many amazing things about him and how fabulous that you had the opportunity to work so long with him. Oh gosh, I have so many questions, and I don't want to touch on too, sensitive topic. And again, this is super, honest and authentic because you said that early on, and that is exactly how I want these conversations to be, is fully authentic, which means I'm going to even express if I'm asking a question that you may not want to answer. But I do wonder what your thoughts are about what you think causes curiosity to wane. What causes a drop in
Mm.
curiosity in any, it doesn't have to be a leader, it could be up and down the whole chain. So
It's a cracker, that one, Colleen. I mean, that is the nugget of a question. Well, if I look at myself, because I know myself, I can only say what feeds my curiosity is not having the empowerment to be able to follow that through, to be able to experience that, to be able to try and fail, having that sort of cushion of safety around you. You know, as one of the things I try to develop with my team, me telling them they're empowered is not them being empowered. They have to feel it. I have to be, and I always call this a very boring word, consistent. If I'm consistent, which is a very beige word, there's nothing sparkly about the word consistent, but it is such an underrated sort of boring beige word. But it is critical, I think, on building empowerment and letting people have the space to be able to express themselves and have those challenging ideas, to think outside the box, as the saying goes. We need to feel that safety to ask all the stupid questions. And I can guarantee I'm up front asking them, straight away. And I think if I'm not stupid and if I'm thinking, don't quite get that, somebody else will be in that room. I guarantee out of the 20 people sat around that exec table, somebody will be thinking, what? Eh? What wait? So just say it. I don't feel by asking a curious question to attain understanding is a stupid thing to do. I think the stupid thing to do is to sit there not knowing and being bewildered. Uh, it's just way I think.
uh, I'm something's coming up for me that came up for me when I asked you first if you would be part of this series. I was sitting at an airport at Heathrow and we were having a conversation. I was listening to you and I said, Nicola, you have to write a book. I'll write it with you just to get your wisdom out. When what you just said, oh my goodness, if it, I wonder if people who were, wanting to be leaders and they were going through their courses, whether it's at university or not, and they're learning what it means to be a great leader, how often their course instructors are talking about what you just said, which is creating that safety. And I know that that term psychological safety is being used more. I think it's being used more in the UK. I think in the United States now, that's probably not being discussed as much. But in my opinion, as having, trained and worked as a therapist and then trained and working now as a coach and just having worked in high tech myself, for leaders who or managers that did or did not create psychological safety, I know what shuts down when I don't feel safe to ask those questions,
Yeah.
when I'm afraid of making a mistake.
Yeah, you're not
That's
at your optimum. And I just want you to be the very best I can. Because if you're your absolute sweet spot, you will deliver for me, in turn will deliver for the business, in turn will deliver for our customers. It's like a magic flow through of the stream. It's beautiful. But we've just got to create this environment so everyone can thrive. And this has been quite different because I've never thought different to this. 20, 30 years ago when I was just starting my career in management and things, I couldn't understand why you would give somebody a task that they would struggle to do. You would give them a task that they would excel at. If they excel at that task, they will produce a fantastic piece of work for you. They'll feel fantastic about it and they'll be ready for the next opportunity to come along. So why you'd set somebody up to fail, and this quite bewilders me as to why, we weren't really thinking like this. And I felt quite alone in the way I thought all them years back. And I'm not saying I knew that I was right. Coming back to what you said, it feels right. I do lots of things that feel right. And it comes back to the heart and the authenticity again. And it just felt right. And everything I do has a feel about it. And I'm very reliant on this feel.
I oh my goodness, you're just singing my song. I mean, I mean, I knew this would be a great conversation, but the gems that are I'm so glad that you're talking about all of the what you're talking about. This feeling, and you said you always do, you always have the feeling, and I think so many people do not pay attention to that gut instinct, that feel. And the more I learn about interoception, the more the science tells us that what's happening in the body is crucial. We all think it all happens up here in the brain and it's doing all of the processing. And it's not. The wisdom is actually so much of it, and the intelligence is in the body. So I'm just thrilled that this has been just part of how you have been in the world. It sounds like since forever.
Yeah, well, it is. It's really quite challenging because when you look back, you know, I've been around a while, done a few turns of the block, and and being a woman, I come from heavy engineering and lots of engineering disciplines, and it's been very male orientated. There wasn't the go girl drive that there is now back then. Let's just say there was nothing about mentoring, there was nothing about coaching, there was nothing about a woman and how difficult it is. And I always say you can have it all, you've just got to find the balance and a little bit better at planning than the male colleagues. And and now there is, which is absolutely fantastic for our new graduates, apprentices, the youth, that's the fresh blood and the youth that's coming through to bring their ideas of their era, of their experience. But there was nothing then for us to sit on. So it was a very different world. And nobody trained you to do this stuff back then. We both know Mark Davis at Seven Futures and his philosophy. And I feel I've been living and breathing it in my own little bubble. And he's brought it alive. And so I can just excel. And I'm very privileged that working at Siemens allows me to excel and allows me to bring my crazy ideas. And the team dread me going on holiday because the brain gets to download. Well, and I'll pull a receipt out of my handbag and go, right, today's task is, because it's written on the back. And we'll do things written on the back of a receipt by the pool as the sangria was going down. So it's things like that where it just lets it flow. But it's been very gracious of Siemens that they do let me have my head, and I'm very privileged to say that it's been, I'll say, mostly good, which is great. I'm still here, so all good there. and and yes, and I think that's been how it's been through my life, is pushing ahead, looking for that next thing, and never accepting the norm. And I remember about 20 years ago, somebody said to me, "Do you ever get off and smell the roses?" As this passage of time that's pushing on, because I wanted to do this, then that, then. And it really made me stop in my tracks when I was about 30, 35. I thought, wow, yes. And so I did get off and smell the roses, but then I got straight back on again because there's so much out there, so much to grip us, and so much for us to be doing that you think, right, okay, yes. But it's very nice. And what it made me conscious of back then is I always take my team backwards in time. Look at what we've done. Look at what you've done. Look at what's happened. Isn't this fantastic stuff that set you up for all this great stuff that's coming? So I hope they like that view because I think you need to, again, you know, when you have a success, you need to celebrate it. And we're all really rubbish at celebrating success. We might go yeehaw and flag wave for like 30 seconds, and then we're on to the task and the day job again. But that's fine, as well as we look after ourselves and we're bringing that, you know, the curiosity lets us lead the way into that next stage because you sign that off every October. The 30th September, we are heroes because that's our year end. The 1st of October, we are zeros because that's our new year. And literally, we have it going like that, and then push down it comes, and we have to start again, and we have to build the curve again. And I find it fascinating that a number of years back, they kept saying, but we're being asked for more. And I go, yes, that's the game we're in. So we started to do some work with ourselves and really focus on ourselves again. To understand ourselves, to understand how we react in the moment. If we've got to go into a meeting, give bad news or news that's not quite expected where it was, all those reactions are happening in less than a millisecond. It's all going off. And for us to understand that helps us manage that and helps us give us the right presence in here again. And so we feel it in the right way and we can manage those emotions in the right way because I find that's quite exciting because, hopefully if somebody's thinking the way I'm thinking, they'll help me and be curious about why we failed that. Or even more so, why did we succeed at that? I mean, how fantastic. Then we can replicate it and share that best practice and everyone's a winner.
I am loving this and so grateful that you agreed to take time to have this conversation because I'm going to be hounding you about that book. I mean, no, seriously, Nicola, this is incredible. And I keep coming back to you mentioned the post of my good friend Kelly Corbett Weinschenk, and she has a book called, it's about joy. And that's everything that you've been talking about, your joy is coming through. So that's incredible. I mean, I'm leaving this conversation really feeling joyful myself and very grateful.
Anytime.
Okay,
I'm very humbled because I'm
I'll
like,
take you up on that.
just me.
I mean, I wanted to try to keep these short to 30 minutes because I really want to get as many people listening and piquing their own curiosity. But what you've touched on in such a short period of time, I see the clock is 32 minutes and now 15 seconds, is it's a gold mine. It really, so I'm glad this is recorded because I will be going back and listening to this a lot myself. And I'm not going to let you off the hook about a book. I'm not. I'm just not. We
Oh,
need to
bless
get your
you.
wisdom out there and we need to get your joy out there and your authenticity out there. I'm going to leave it at that, okay?
Colleen, it's been an absolute pleasure. I can't believe 32 minutes
I
has
know.
passed. In one way, I can actually, because that's usually the problem when you get me and you talking. Well, me specifically. So
I'm
it's
so
been a
grateful.
pleasure.
I'm just Wow, I did not get much sleep last night because I've got a lot going on and I'm not in my own place. And I just feel so jazzed right now. And I'm just so thankful.
Always here to help, Colleen. Anything, any way I can. And I always say, if you need an uplift, I'm your girl.
It is like an injection of energy. Thank you so much, Nicola. And I hope you have a fabulous afternoon and a fabulous weekend of nannying.
Absolutely. We'll do in the sunshine as well. In the UK, we've got a mini heat wave. It's a bank holiday as well, so we get Monday off. And it's usually terrible weather, as you can expect. But this time, it's like It's a one-off. It's going to be beautiful. So, Colleen, thank you so much for asking me, bringing me in, and it's always lovely to speak. And I hope that your viewers, your listeners, that they take something from it,
Oh,
because you're very special indeed. And thank you again for asking me.
and so to viewers and listeners, please drop in your comments and questions because I'm going to be pulling more out of Nicola. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I wish you a lovely, long bank holiday weekend.